Alright, another round of bread baking, and this time I'm going to be concentrating or showing you the difference in hydration. What I've done is I made a starter. I then made it into 80% hydration, cut out a third of it, 70% hydration, cut out another third, and then took this to 65% hydration. So let's start with the 80%. You can see this is a pretty loose dough, very slack, not going to hold its shape very well at all. I'll try that, I think. So we can fold it over a little bit, try and give it a little more strength and structure to the dough, but you can see the dough is very, very, very loose, and it's not going to stay well. You know, it's kind of all over the place here. So now that what we've done is we've made the dough, we let it rise for a couple hours, and when it doubled in size, what I was going to do was take it and bake it on a sheet, but this dough is probably not going to stay on a sheet, so I'm going to put it back in the bowl here. And we'll let it take its shape from the bowl. But you can see with the hydration that low, with the hydration that high, it is very loose dough, not going to hold its shape well. The good news is that when we finally do bake it out, it's going to have a nice airy structure on the inside. And you can also see the bowl was full, and just by kind of smoothing it around the way we've knocked a lot of air out of it. So back it goes onto the tray here, and so let's take a look now at the 70%. So this dough is still a fairly loose dough, but it does hold its shape. So what I'm going to do, try and shape it into a little ball. Now, when I made these doughs, I started off with 600 grams of flour. So these doughs are going to be about half the size of a normal loaf. But you can see on the 70% hydration, it will actually properly hold its shape. I added a little bit of dill just for taste because I do have to eat these. And then you notice when you compare that just taking it out and kind of shaping it into a little ball here has knocked a lot of the air out of it. So we're going to take the 70%, we're going to put it on a cookie sheet, which you can't see, and that's the 70% dough sorted. So again, this is a solid dough, it will hold its shape. It's not going to be as airy as the 80% dough when it gets baked, but it's still going to be pretty good. And then finally we have our 60% dough. You can see the 70% did not come out cleanly, kind of stuck. 60% just dropped right out of the bowl. Holds its shape much better than the 70% does. So we could actually roll this into a ball. And it's actually going to stay in the ball. Now when we cook this, this is a dough, and that's why I prefer the lower hydration doughs, because they are much easier to work with. The 80% dough, you can see I still have it on my hands, extraordinarily messy to work with. Yeah, I had to use the scraper to manipulate the dough because I didn't want it everywhere. 70% dough, it's good, but it is still a little bit loose. The 60% dough, very solid, much easier to work with. But again, the disadvantage is this is going to form a closer crumb. So it's not going to be, it's going to be a thicker, denser bread. And when we look at the cookie sheet that I'm going to bake these on after their second rise, you can see the 80% is still all over the map. The 60% dough is holding well. It's holding its height much better. and then the 70%, it is, you know, firm enough to stay on the sheet, but it's not so firm that it's going to hold. So, you know, again, the transition, which is not going to surprise you. The least water holds its shape the best. In the middle, and then the one with the most water, very gloopy dough. So, got some paper towels, wet them, and cover these up because unfortunately the cookie sheet won't fit in my proofing drawer. So I'm going to give these their second rise, and then we're going to bake them in about an hour, and probably go for, I want to say, probably 40 minutes at 350 for these, I think. It might be done, that might be too high. It might be done a little bit early. But, you know, we'll take it as it comes along. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know when I do finally bring these out, what they were at. But that just gives you a sense of, you know, here's what the doughs look like with varying hydrations. And then after we cook them, you can see the difference in the inside and the taste of the bread with the varying hydrations. And that'll help you understand why bakers or why bread makers spend so much time being really worried about what's the hydration of my bread. So back in a minute. Okay, so these actually ended up taking 35 minutes at 350. You can see this is the 80% bread, and you can tell from the shape that it was in the bowl there. It did fall down a little bit. So we cut it open, and you can see there's the crumb structure is more open. That is to say, there are a lot more air holes. You check along the bottom here. It doesn't feel like dough, it feels like bread, so we are cooked all the way through. Next, we go to the 70% bread. So you can see also good rise, the air holes, but the air holes are smaller, which is what you would expect to see with less hydration. You can also see that it held its shape fairly well. Unfortunately, I put these all three on a cookie sheet, and this one kind of spread out a little bit, so I had to fold it over into a more elongated loaf shape, which is why it looks like that. And then finally, we get into the 60% bread, which this is interesting. This has some holes here from the rising, but the bread itself is okay. This one might be a little bit underdone. Probably could have used a couple more minutes. But you can see, you know, you're comparing the 60% and the 70% here. Fairly similar. But then when you go and look at the 70 versus the 80 here, there's a much more open structure. So that's hydration, and changing the hydration of your bread and what it does to the texture, the bake, and the loaf. Thanks for watching. Bye.